On the Edge, Out of the Blue, Unit 1, Selection 2, Mystery in the Mountains. Page 5. People had never seen anything like it before. On the evening of January 23, 1974, green lights appeared in the sky over Chester, England. Dozens of people saw them, but no one knew what they were. They weren't stars. They weren't airplanes. They didn't form a pattern. They just zigzagged across the sky. They seemed to be moving toward the Berwyn Mountains in northeastern Wales. 2 hours later, a very large object was spotted over the Berwyn Mountains. The object seemed to be falling toward the ground. Anne Williams lived in the area. She saw the object coming down. It was like an electric bulb in shape, with rough edges, she said. The object fell behind the hills on the back of my bungalow. 14-year-old Hugh Lloyd saw it too. He was watching TV. Hugh lived in the small Welsh village of Landarillo. He looked out the window and saw the object flying across the sky. He noted that it had a blinking blue light. A few minutes later, the object apparently hit one of the mountains. The crash became at 8:38 p.m. "The earth shook," said Anne Williams. "The crash rattled homes and lit up the sky. It knocked glasses off kitchen counters. It caused shelves to fall down. The blast was felt in Chester and even farther away. People who lived 60 miles from the mountains felt it. It measured 4.5 on the Richter scale. That made it as strong as a small earthquake." Following the crash, people rushed outside. They saw blue lights floating over a mountain called Cader Browen. Some saw orange lights as well. At least one man reported a strange noise. It was a buzzing sound, he said. It reminded him of a swarm of bees. Many people thought an airplane had crashed. They saw police cars rushing toward the mountain. "I was amazed at how quickly the police responded and how many people came here," Hugh Lloyd said. Pat Evans was a nurse who lived in the area. She got a call from the police. They wanted her to come to the mountain and help any survivors of the crash. Pat gathered a few supplies. Then she climbed into her car and drove toward Cader Browen. As she neared the crash site, she saw something amazing. There was a strange object on the mountainside. It looked like some kind of spaceship, but it didn't look as if it had crashed. Instead, it seemed quite intact. It was round, very big, and it gave off an orange glow. Suddenly, the police officers hurried up to Pat. They told her to leave the mountain. She explained why she had come. Still, they told her to leave. They wouldn't. Continued on page 6. They wouldn't answer any of her questions. They just wanted her to get out. Pat was scared, so she turned around and went home. Soon dozens of army trucks rolled into the area. British soldiers blocked off the roads. No one was allowed in. Shepherds couldn't even get up the mountain to check on their sheep. The roadblocks stayed in place for several days. Then the army trucks left. The army announced that it had found nothing. It said there was no evidence of a crash of any kind. Many people thought the government was covering up the truth. Rumors began to swirl. One woman said she had seen alien bodies scattered on the ground. A man told a detailed story to reporter Nick Redfern. Redfern wrote about it in his book Cosmic Crashes. The man did not want his real name used, so Redfern picked a pseudonym. He called the man James Prescott. Prescott was one of the soldiers who went to Cader Browen on the night of the crash. He and 4 other soldiers saw 2 long boxes on the ground. They loaded the boxes into their truck. They loaded the boxes into their truck. They took the boxes to an Army laboratory. When the boxes were opened, Prescott saw 2 dead aliens inside. It was obvious that the creatures were not of this earth, Prescott told Redfern. The bodies were 5 or 6 feet tall. They were shaped like humans, but were much, much thinner. They looked almost skeletal, with a covering of skin, Prescott said. Was James Prescott telling the truth? What about Pat Evans? And what about all the people who saw lights or heard or felt a crash that night? People who believe a UFO really did crash on Cater-Browen. These people say there were so many witnesses they couldn't all have been deluded, but others disagree. One man who disagrees is Andy Roberts. In 2000, Roberts wrote an article called Fire on the Mountain. He said that there were indeed lights in the sky that night, but the lights didn't come from a UFO. They were meteors. Astronomers in Britain did record several meteors that night. The shaking ground could have been caused by a small earthquake, and the eyewitnesses might simply have been confused. Roberts calls their stories a tangle of belief and wishful thinking. Roberts might be right, but there was one piece of evidence that is hard to explain. In 1980, an engineer named Arthur Adams went to the crash site. He wanted to look around. Adams found small pieces of green metal lodged in the rocks. He took these back to his laboratory. He found that they carried a weird electrical charge. And so a sense of mystery still lingers in the Berwyn Mountains. People want to know what really happened there. Did an alien spacecraft crash on that lonely mountain? Or did people just let their imaginations run away with them?